So here we have the new tent day. How exciting. I've actually bought another Robens tent. You might have seen the video on the Robens Voyager 2EX, which is the two-person tunnel tent. And this is a Elk River1, so it's a one-person, effectively a tunnel tent, but it's a very small tunnel tent. Let's have a look at the tent itself. This is the first use. It should be quick to put up, and well, let's have a little look, and I'll talk you through some of the detail about the tent. So, Elk River1, it's a one-person sloping tunnel tent. It's quick erect. It's got an external single hoop ridge pole, and it's exoskeletal, so the pole is on the outside. It's got quite a small pitch area, and as I mentioned before, this is a quick erect tent. So it comes in this oversized bag, which has a single compression strap for it. And the tent, you can see the size of the bag. And the size of the tent. So this is the tent, and the overall weight of the tent, that's with everything, is just over 1.5 kilogram. So it's a 1.5 kilogram tent, which is relatively light for something that is quite high spec. So let's have a little look and see what we've got. So just a couple of webbing straps there to keep it nice and tight. And the pack size is 42 by 11 centimeters. So completely packed up, cinched down, 42 by 11 centimeters. So what we've actually got is the poles. Now the poles are DAC poles, and they're alloy 7001 T6. They're anodized, and they are 9mm. You can see I've not used the tent, everything's still in its plastic bags, which we can dispense with now. Yeah, so you've got DAC poles, 7001 T6. They're all linked through a central hub, which is there. And as you can see, the whole thing just clicks together. Now these DAC poles are supposed to be among the best that you can get. And I think this is the first tent actually that have got DAC poles. So that's the actual pole structure set up. You've got a single pole coming through, which is pre-shaped at the rear of the tent. That comes up to the hub, which you can see here. And then there are two parts to the front of the tent to give it its shape at the entrance at the door. Single door. Very, very light poles. So we have in the little peg bag well, firstly we've got a repair patch. So I presume that'll be a sticky back repair patch, which I would imagine is it's the same material as the floor covering. We've also got a pole repair sleeve, And then we've got some very light alloy pegs. We've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 13 pegs. Again, very, very light. Just to let you see them. We've then got the fly sheet in this almost a bit of an olivey green colour. And on this one, pre-attached, is the inner. And it's a mostly solid inner. I believe with a mesh panel at the top of the door, the inner door. Anyhow, that's your fly sheet, as you can see there. And that's it basically, and 1.5 kilogram. You can see with the very lightweight materials that are being used, how they've managed to keep this tent really light for something that's got a very high specification when it comes down to the actual material grades. But I'll talk through that in a moment or two. I think the thing is, it's a beautiful day. As you've seen from the initial clip on the video, there's some cricket going on just 100 yards away, which you might hear over and above me talking. And I'm actually located on a pub campsite, and the actual campsite part of the pub is free of charge. But for now, let's get the tent up. So that's basically that's the tent erected. I've used 6 pegs, 1 for each of the corners, and 2, 1 either side of the entrance. There's no need for guying the tent out. It's a very, very mild night. Other than on either side of the tent, there are 2 guy lines that help to pull the interior, that's the inner tent, out to give you a little bit more space. So I'm just going to tie them out, but only because it'll give a bit more room. And also, there are 2 peg out points midway down the tent. I'm going to peg them out as well because it'll probably just tension everything quite nicely from a point of view of the interior again. So, quite a quick pitch, and that was the first time. having to think about it, but next time it'd be so much easier. Just a couple of things to mention. I've put all the pegs out around the circumference of the ground level of the tent. That involves 2 at the back, 2 either side of these poles at the bottom, 2 on the door, 1 each side, and 1 peg on each side of the middle of the tent, down the middle. And the reason you do all that is to just get that inner tent stretched out and tensioned, so it gives you more room inside. Because typically where you've got the poles on the outside, the inners can be a little bit flappy. So they've got connectors between the inner and the outer at the points I've just mentioned, and that helps to tension the inner tent outwards a little bit. So, Robens Elk River1, it's the Odyssey range, very high quality materials, and I'll go into that in a second. But just now I want to have a look inside, because I've not seen inside this tent in a erected position. Oh, before I do that, the only 2 guy lines I haven't put out are these 2 either side of the door, and there isn't any need to do so because it's such a mild, beautiful night. I probably will do later on, but these are used what they call a storm guard system, which is basically that piece of material you can see there with the guy line attached, and all you do is just wrap that around the pole. Just take it round once and then guy it out, and it just gives extra strength to those 2 poles either side, and the same for the single pole that comes down the rear. The fly sheet door is a double zip, so you can zip and vent the tent. Or just open it completely and the tent door has got a nice feature on it, in that it's got this bit of paracord with a fastener, a loop on the other side, on the outer. You feed it through, and then literally just tension that up, and that's never going to move. So the inner door is actually folded away, but I'll just zip that up again so you can have a look at it. So your inner is mostly solid material, which gives it an ability to use in winter, along with some other features which I'll talk about. And it has a half moon mesh at the top of the door to let air get through, and that corresponds with the top of the door in the half moon shape that you can zip down. So what's also interesting about this is it has a double zip as well, so that if you don't want the door fully open, if the weather's a bit inclement and you've got the outer in the half moon shape at the top, you can also unzip the top of the door and you've created a little bit of weather protection if you do want that open. It's raining, but it's not too bad, just a little bit of light rain. And that's another nice feature actually. So as you saw there, the door just stashes away in a pocket which is at the side of either side of the entrance. So you've got a pocket that side, and you've got a pocket on the right hand side. And that's the only pockets you've actually got in the tent. Actually, I think we'll have a little walk round and just have a look at the tent in its fixed position. You'll notice that the fly sheet sits very close to the ground. And that's another feature of the winterization of this tent. And this is the rear storm guard system that they've got. So all you do with that is wrap it round once, pull it out, and then put it back to its peg point, and then tension it up. And that's their little storm guard system. So I presume what it does is it just helps to keep the poles in place or stronger. Nice looking tent, and obviously if you get that pitched properly with the wind coming in at the lower end of the tent, this should be quite robust. Yeah, so the fly sheet's 30 denier polyester 335T. It's ripstop. So it's a polyester tent, but it's actually siliconized PU on the inside, which will help to give it its rating of 3000 millimeter hydrostatic head. The inner of the tent itself is 30D ripstop polyester, and that's breathable. The flooring is 75 denier, and that's polyester taffeta 185T. The hydrostatic head on the floor is 7000 millimeter. I've mentioned about the DAC poles. Very, very light. I've never had DAC poles before, but renowned to be very, very strong poles. Now the tent is wind tested. All the tents, Robens tents, are wind tested, and this one's wind tested to a maximum of 140 kilometers an hour, but an average of 107 kilometers an hour. So this tent's good for probably between 60 to 80 mile per hour winds. So it's very difficult to film inside a tent, but it is quite compact. It narrows down towards the rear, as you've seen on the exterior of the video. But we'll see better once I've got my gear inside the tent, so we can see what actually fits in. There's also some paracord at the top for a washing line or an equipment line, and that's tensionable as well. So I've mentioned its pack size, which was 42 by 11 centimetres, weight of 1.52 kilogram. The height of the tent at its highest point is 95 centimetres on the inside, 100 on the outside. The width at its widest point is 80 centimetres, and at its narrowest point, 50 centimetres. That's on the inside, outside 170 respectively. The length of the tent is 270 centimetres, which is actually 215 of the inner, and then the porch is an extra 55 centimetres. The whole outer of the tent is 275-ish centimetres. Can't quite remember, but it'll be just fractionally above the interior. I bought this tent at the same time I bought the Voyager 2EX, which you may well have seen, the bigger tunnel tent. And I bought them both in winter, so I got them at really good prices. This one I paid just under £190, so £189.99, and that was delivered. I think they're retailing up towards the £300 mark. Technically, they're, I suppose, a mid-tech tent, but I'm never going to be spending £1,000 on a tent, and this tent can, for me personally, can be used year-round. So that's your Robens Elk River1 one-person sloping tunnel tent. Why did I buy it? I've got other solo tents, but I do like to buy and review different tents. And at the end of the day, some of those tents I do sell and some I keep. At the moment, I'm not so sure whether this is one that I'll keep, but I'm never that sure with any tent that I buy until I've started using it. I'm sleeping in the tent tonight. It's a glorious evening, and I think the weather's going to stay quite nice for the next couple of days. But I'll give you a quick catch up in the morning to let you know what my first thoughts are in using the tent. I do like these Robens tents, Danish company, high quality spec, nicely constructed, and the other one that I've got, the Voyager 2EX, the larger tunnel tent, I think is tremendous, and that's going to be a brilliant winter camping tent for me. This is more of a tent for me to put up very quickly, take down very quickly, and I've no doubt this is going to be a very, very quick, rapid erection and takedown. I do like the look of it. First impressions are good. Quite tight inside, but then most of these solo tents that I've used are the same. So guys, I'm actually stopping at a pub campsite, and it's a beautiful evening. I'm sort of getting round to wanting something to eat. I've already had a pint, but I'm going to get another. So I'll probably just catch up with you in the morning. Might catch up later, but probably in the morning to give you my initial feedback on first use. Thanks for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. Morning, guys. Well, that's my first overnighter in the Robens Elk River1. What a nice little tent this is. As you can see, I'm able to sit up in the tallest part of the inner of the tent. My head's not touching the inner, but my hair is brushing against it. So 5'9", and I can sit up, and if need be I could make a brew if the weather's not so good. I showed you the door so that you can have the door zipped up with the top open, but anyway, you can sit up in it if you're 5'9" or less. I mean, to be honest, you know, you could crouch in here if you're a little bit taller, but for me this sort of works quite well, as you can see. So what can I say? First night impressions. Very, very good. I had a really good sleep. When I first looked inside the tent yesterday when we'd erected it, I think I made a comment that it did look a bit compact, and it's simply because of the design of the tent with the sloping tunnel shape, and obviously in very high winds you try and get that facing the wind, but actually it didn't feel as compact once I'd got my sleep mat, sleeping bag, and a couple of other little bits and pieces. I had my electrics charging, little bag of clothes, which was this bag, and Everything else went in my dry bag on the bike. So actually using the tent, it did feel a little bit more roomy. It's still a compact tent. Last night there was no rain. It was a very, very clear night because it was a beautiful day yesterday. It was a very starry night through the early part of the night. I think round about 3 o'clock when I got up, it had started to mist over, so it was very, very misty. And therefore everything was getting very, very damp. But no rain. With the fly sheet, there is no external vents on the fly sheet itself. Now I assume that's to keep weight down, and at the rear of the tent, the inner mesh that you saw at the rear, there's a small triangle shape. That obviously gets its air from the fly, which seems to protrude a little bit slightly higher than the side walls do. I'll show you that in a very quick walk round, final walk round. This inner panel of the inner door has the mesh. Well, the first thing I'd noticed on the tent was there's no external vent. However, it was warm in the tent last night, and I knew it was not going to rain, so for the entire night I had the door, top part of the door. Let me just show you. So this is what I was talking about you could do. You could have that completely open, which corresponds with the actual half moon shape on the inner door. But I didn't need that, so what I did, I just had it so that it was venting from about there. And that, my friends, worked tremendously well. Now, if it's really heavy rain, that might not work quite as well, but I guess you would just zip it round to there. So, actually, the venting of the tent was tremendous. There was a bit of condensation on the inner of the fly, but nothing on the inside of the inner of the tent. And it was a warm night, and there was condensation on the inner of the fly itself, but nothing got inside the tent. And again, that's something that surprised me. I thought it might be a tent where you did get a bit of condensation coming through the inner material, but this inner material seemed to keep anything out from the fly. Obviously, time will tell over a longer period, but that venting with the door and the little vent at the back seemed to do the job. The porch area here, I haven't made any brews, I haven't cooked, I haven't done anything on this little trip because I'm stopping at a pub, so I've used the pub facilities. But there is plenty of room in here. In fact, last night I had my cook stove and food kit in here, along with motorcycle boots and these trainers, and my little backpack, and they all fitted in nicely there, leaving adequate room for me in and out. So, great sleep, no condensation getting inside the tent, There was no high winds, no rain, so I can't comment on that. But I had a very comfortable night, and it felt roomier than it actually looks. So I'm going to show you inside the tent with my sleeping bag and, well, the gear that I had in last night, really. And you can take your own view on that. But remember, it is a small tent. However, felt a little bit bigger. Now, where you see the sleeping bag and the mat underneath, that's the exact position where I slept. So the sleeping bag, sleep mat and bag offset slightly to the right at an angle because it narrows down at the back, which you can clearly see from the image. And for a small tent, it gives quite a reasonable bit of storage to the left-hand side there. And there's about, I would say about 12 inches at the bottom of the mat where you can store things. I've only got the bags for the actual sleep mat and sleeping bag down there, but you could store things down there. I kept most of my stuff on the bag last night. Anyway, it's time to get the tent taken down and time to move on. I hope you found the video useful. I do like to try and show it in the best detail I can and in practical use. I'll give another review of this tent once I've used it for a period of time, and if there's any updates I do to the tent, I'll let you know. But there you have your Robens Elk River1 in all its little glory.